Hello everyone, welcome back to another Hackathon oSTEM training video. In this video we're going to be covering the backend, and we're also going to finish up the backend in the next video. And keep in mind, this part of the training could be kind of confusing and new, especially if you're very new to coding. So feel free to come to the office hours or ask me questions, and I could possibly meet up with you if you want, or set up a Zoom or Discord call to help you out. So anyways, the first thing we're going to want to do is you're going to go to your repo. So right now, your repo should just have front end stuffs and no folders. So we're going to need to put all this in a front end folder and then create a back end folder. This way we can separate our back end from the front end. So to do that, you're just going to create a new folder and you're going to name it front end, and you're just going to take all of this and stick it in there. And then you're going to make another folder and you're going to name it backend, just like that. Okay, so our next task is to actually set up the backend folder. So to do that, you're gonna go cd into your backend folder or open git bash within that new folder we created, and you're gonna do npm init, just like that. And this might take some time, it's just initializing everything. We're gonna name it backend version. You could just skip all of this, and then that is okay. So now you'll have a package.json. So that is good. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to do npm install express. Just like that. Wonderful. So now you should have the backend all set up, and it's not going to have any code yet since we're going to get to that in this video. Okay, so next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to actually create a database. So to do that, you're going to go to this site here. I'll link it down in the description. And you're also gonna want to make an account here. So once you make an account or sign in with Google, you'll have a screen like similar to this. So you're gonna want to just create a new project, and you're gonna name that whatever you want. So so I'm just gonna name mine Connecting Pride Video Example, and you should name it something relative to your actual project. And I'll do next. I'm the project owner. You could also add members if you're working with other people, and then you'll just do create project. Just like that. Beautiful. Now, after that, this is the next important step. You're going to want to actually get access to it. So you're going to do add IP address, and you're going to add your current IP address. Now, if you're like working at Cal Poly on this and go home, you're going to always have to come back here and add your IP address. So you just do add current IP address. So I'm just gonna like cover this out in the video so you don't see my IP address, but after that you're gonna do confirm, and it should have your IP address just like that. And now you should have access to it. But if your IP address changes, like if you start working at home and then you switch to the school, always go back to the screen and add the IP address for your development purposes. So next thing is we're going to go to database, and we're going to build a database. And you're just going to do the free one. So within here there's a bunch of stuff, like if you want to like spend money, you just want the shared one that is free, and you're going to do create cluster. So after that, you're gonna have to create a initial database user, and this is gonna be like the admin. So you're gonna want to create a username and password for that, something secure. So I'm just gonna name mine oSTEM hack, and then you can just choose any password. So I'm just gonna think of my own personal password right now. So, and write this down or remember it because this is important. So I'm just gonna name it, let's say oSTEM hack, and my password is gonna be a secret. Okay, this password contains special characters. I guess we don't want that. Okay. So next we're gonna create that user, and you should have this, and your password should be hidden, and that should be good. What else do we need to do? IP address. My IP is already there, and then you do finish and close, and you go to database. And now you'll have your database set up here. And right now it's still like loading and initializing. You could do connect, and this will be important once we start coding because you're going to want to connect your backend code to your database so you can make changes to your database. So eventually we're going to have to copy this string into our code, and we're going to have the username we just made and the password we just made right there, and I'll get into that a bit later. But that's essentially how you set up Mongo. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to actually kind of set up your backend so you can actually run it. So what you're going to do is you're going to first create this new file called index.js. And within index.js, sorry, wrong program. Within index.js, you're essentially going to add this code here. So first you're going to add your like import stuff. So you're going to get Express, Mongoose, just like that. And then this, you could ignore that for now. And then we're also gonna do .env, and this is gonna help us like get our password so we could actually authenticate ourselves to connect to the Mongo database. And I'll get into that in a bit. And then you're gonna have this code to connect to it, then process.env Mongo URL, and then this here just to like test things out. So this will just say the backend is running. And then if we go to this area, it will say this is home. So to connect to your Mongo database, you're going to want to create a .env file. But before all that, you're going to actually need to install .env. So to do that, you're going to go to your backend folder, open up a terminal just like this, and you're going to do npm install .env. And you're also going to need to install Mongoose, so you're going to do npm install Mongoose, just like that on the screen. And after that, you should be good with this code here, and it should be able to run once we get the other part I'm about to talk about done. So next thing is you're actually going to need to connect to your Mongo database. And to do that, since we don't want to have the password right here just open in our code for everyone to see, so basically we're going to create a new file called .env, and basically there's going to be this variable within this file, and we're going to add this file to our gitignore so we don't push our password to our remote repository, and this is going to help connect us to our database. So to go get that string, we need to go to our database, like I was mentioning before. You're going to click connect your application, and you're going to copy this. So right now it's just going to say password. Here you're going to actually input your real password. And then also just a brief intro to Mongo database. Eventually when we start making code, all of our code is going to go into this collection. Right now it just says this because we don't have anything yet. So anyways, let's close out of that, and you're going to go to .env. So I already have it here, but let me just like repaste it. So right now it should have a placeholder password like that, like before. And what you're going to do here is you're going to input your actual real password. And I'm going to do that off screen so I don't leak my password on video. But anyways, make sure you have your user here and then input your password. So that's why it's important you know that password. So anyways, I'm going to do that in a different screen. So let me just input the password here. Okay, cool. My password is in there now. So now if we go back to our index.js, it's going to basically parse that Mongo URL string. So that string we put in here is going to be here now. And that's what's going to connect us to our database. Just like that. So now, just to test everything now, we're going to first go to our package.json. And in our package.json, we're going to, hold on, let me just open this up with the right app. Here we go. In package.json, we're going to add this line to our scripts. So basically, we're going to want to make it so that if you say npm start in the terminal, it actually runs this command. So that's what this script thing does. So you're going to do npm start, and it's going to run this. So to initialize that, you're going to go to your script and then just add this line. So it's actually just calling node index.js, which is kind of like our main file here. So anyways, to test that everything is fine, you're going to go to your backend folder and you're going to do npm start. Just like that. And once you do that, it should say Mongo database is connecting and that everything is completely good. And then you could further test it and by going to localhost. Let me just get that set up here. So if you go to localhost 3001, that's the port we're running this program on, it should say this is home. Now right now you won't see anything because we're doing backend, so we're not doing any pretty stuff on the front end. But if you go here, it should say this is home. Because by going here, we're going to that root or slash. And from our code, as you remember, if we use the slash, it will say this is home. And also we're initializing that we're listening to it at port 3001 here. And perfect, now your backend is all set up. So you're probably wondering why and how can we test the backend if we can't actually see anything visual. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna install Postman, and what this does, there's also multiple other applications you could test backend with, but I generally use Postman, and you can install this for your operating system. And what this does is basically, as you see from this picture, is you can do post and get requests to the backend directly and manually to see if everything's working fine. Now, that may be a lot to digest, especially if you have not worked with this, but I will go further into it in later videos when we actually start testing our code. So anyways, I just want to mention this because we're getting everything all set up, so go ahead and install this, and it's just an application that you could run and open up just like that. Okay, so we're going to get into some coding right now, and then I'm going to end off this video because it's getting kind of long because the installation stuff kind of takes a while. But in this part, we're going to basically just create our model schemas for the backend and our database. And then the next videos, we'll get into actually creating get and post functions. So essentially, you're going to create a models folder just like this in your backend, and you're going to add these three files: category.js, post.js, and user.js. And what each of these represent is they represent the types of items that will be in our database. So in our database, we're going to have a list of users, which makes sense because we're going to have multiple users using our site. And then we're going to have a database collection of a list of posts. That way, because we need to store posts somehow, so we're going to have posts. And then finally, we're going to have categories for those posts. So in our database, we're going to have a category database, and it's going to be a list of all the categories users create and assign to each of their posts. Now, to create these schemas, you're going to open up all these files and you're going to input the following code. And let me just explain this. Let's start with the user because that's the most basic. So for our user, we're going to first require Mongoose that helps us set up the schema for our database. And basically what the database uses is called a schema. And basically the schema kind of tells the database what type of document and attributes we want a certain data to contain. So for user data, we want the following attributes within that particular user data. So we're going to create the user schema just like that. So each user is going to have their own individual username, and that's going to be a string, and we're required to have users have username, and it's going to be unique. So no users in the database should have the same exact username. And then we're going to have an email, and that's also going to be the same, unique and required. And then we're going to have a password. That is required, but it doesn't have to be unique. You know, people could have the same passwords if they desire. And then we're going to have a profile picture for each particular user, just like this. And then you're going to export that schema. Don't forget to add this. This is important so you could use it in other files. And you're going to basically do that. So essentially, as you can tell, this is what a certain user in our database is going to follow this format. So that's why creating these schemas is very important. So next thing, let's go to post. Post is a bit longer because there's more information to be contained. So you're going to create the post schema just like this, and each of our posts is going to have a unique required title, and each post will have a photo, except this isn't required, and then a description, and then certain categories, but they don't need to have categories. And since we could have multiple categories for an individual post, we're gonna just make an array. And this array is gonna hold category objects, which I will discuss once we get to category.js. So basically, each type of category we create in our database is gonna be an object. And this categories list is gonna link to some of those objects based on what the post categories are. And then after that, we're going to have our username so we can specify the author of the post, and that's required, and then we're going to export it. So just like that, that's how you create the post schema. And then after that, we're going to have this small category schema. So this is just so we could like store all the categories users make in the backend. So all that's going to be here is it's just going to be a required string for the name of the category that's unique. So we are not going to have like 20 different categories that are the exact same name. So that's why we want it to be unique. Just like that. So after that, you should have all your schemas. This is not, you don't have to run this or test it right now. This is just for kind of design once we get into creating other code that we actually do need to test. But just add those 3 files there and you should be good. So anyways, I'm going to wrap up this video now. The backend might be split into 3 parts in this series or 2 parts. It depends how long the next part of what I'm going to do takes. But this video basically just covered just getting everything set up, which is usually the most confusing. So if you have any questions, please ask me through DM. And that's usually the hardest part, just getting everything set up. And then after that, we just created 3 model schemas just to code and just get into the flow of things. And then the next videos, we're just going to cover creating actual functions that go into our database and do things. So anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.